2021 General Meeting. My name is Reza, and I'm the Vice President of the Orange County Astronomers, reporting live to you from the Mission Control Room. OCA is happy to join forces with VCAS to make this event happen. Before we start the main talk, I would like to point out to you the ways in which you can interact with us. First is the raise hand function. Please go ahead and find the raise hand button on it and click on it. And this is how we're going to applaud our speaker shortly. Excellent, I see the raise hands, thank you very much. And second, look for the chat menu items. This is how you can send us any comments you may have. And third and last, please find the Q&A option on your screen and look for the Ask a Question button. This is where you can ask our speaker questions during and after his talk. With this, I'm handing it over to Keith to introduce tonight's speaker. Keith.
Reza, thank you very much. I'm Keith, the president of the Ventura County Astronomical Society. Orange County Astronomers and Ventura County Astronomical Society have enjoyed these joint ventures for the last, I think, almost 6 months now, and it has been quite a pleasure to share our experiences. So tonight we're going to be hearing from one of your own, Wally Paholka. Before that, there's a little bit of club business that I do need to talk about. And before that, let me introduce to you our Vice President of Observations, Matt Gusky. He's with us tonight. He's mostly observation, but he's here to learn how to improve his skills as an astrophotographer from your master. I also have with me tonight Todd Mitchell, who is the person who is putting together our calendar. Todd it is brilliant. I spoke to him late last night. He was working on the calendar. Now about that, we have invited Orange County astronomers to submit, and there's a lot of talent in Orange County. Todd was very quick to point out. We've had room for Wally. Wally will have a picture in, and one other Orange County astronomer. We need to make room for Ventura County Astronomical Society. And also, this is our 50th anniversary. We're going to devote some pages to pictures of our club functions from 50 years ago. I've seen them. I can't believe we dressed that way 50 years ago. My goodness, you think disco was in the air. However, the fact is that the calendar, there's things different because of COVID. We've usually already made a deal with Vistaprint, but Vistaprint hasn't come out with any of their flash sales or any of their deals yet. And that's what we're waiting for, because we want to be able to get the calendar to you for $15 or less. So when that comes about, I'm going to send everybody an email asking if they would like to pre-order. Now, this is not to get your money. This is just to find out how many calendars we might want to actually purchase. But before we do that, we're going to make sure that we have all the names of all the people that are included, and that will be included in the email. If you've submitted a picture and you really think that it's going to be on our calendar, I really feel that you should know ahead of time if it is or not before you decide to buy, because you're Orange County astronomers. You do have your own calendar, and if you're not in it, I understand, no harm, no foul. But it is really great to see all of the wonderful work that Orange County astronomers can do, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, that brings me to Wally Paholka, who is our guest tonight. Wally spoke for VCAS back in 2013, and he dazzled us with his stunning nighttime landscape photos from our national parks. I'm glad to have him back tonight. A little bit about Wally. Wally, who's now retired, was an accountant by day, but it was his moonlighting job where he always shined. And he's aglow in winning national awards for his astro landscape pictures. Tonight, we're going to learn how he made Time Magazine the Year in Review for an incredible 4th time. How'd he do it? Well, a little bit of a brief. He went out and he captured Comet Neowise last year from 10 national parks in 10 days. That is quite a marathon. His first inclusion in Time's annual edition was in 1997 for Hale-Bopp, and then again in 2003, but at that time he made both Time Life magazine annual editions for his Mars close encounter photos. Now, as he's sharing tonight, you'll see on some of his slides a website at the bottom. That's the website to his photography. A lot of the work that you will not see tonight, I've been there. This is amazing work. Wally, I am so glad to have you. And with that, oh, by the way, we landed on Mars. I got my own jar of JPL peanuts. Sorry to upstage you, Wally. I had to get that in. Wally, it is now your show. Take it away.
Wally, you're muted. Let me
unmute.
Well, thank you, Keith. That was some introduction. If I knew you were going to give me an introduction like that, I would have charged you in Bitcoin rather than measly dollars for this.
Wow.
Okay, let me pull up the screen here.
Okay, so
Okay, Reza,
the screen share is not showing for some reason. Can you click on that area of the screen anyways? Maybe it's not just showing and it's functional though. The place that we add the...
what place?
The place that the orange button was there.
Yeah, I don't see the orange button now.
Okay, let's do that again.
I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. Okay, here we go.
Okay, excellent. I think you have it. And if you can start sharing your screen.
Okay, I have it on the desktop. Seems like I'm, okay, here we go. Okay, can everyone see the screen now?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
great.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Thank you very much. We're already. Floor is yours all.
I'd like, first of all, thank the Orange County Club and Ventura Club for having me again as a speaker. I enjoy so much sharing some of my experiences under the night sky. And tonight I'm going to share with you how to take great landscape astrophotos. Specifically, before, I'm sorry, one more technical difficulty. Reza, I have all the panelists on top of the screen, and is there a way to put it on the side of the screen?
You might be able to drag and drop it. We are not seeing that. We only see the slides.
Okay. Okay, I dealt with that. Sorry for that interruption. Okay, first of all, what I wanted to cover is just a summary of what I'm going to be covering tonight. And that I'll be going through, first of all, talk a little bit about my background, my early years in Canada that were very formative in my life as an astrophotographer. Then I'm going to be sharing some specific images of our national parks and the continuous parade planets and stars above. Then I'm going to share some of my recent road trips, 4 road trips, which include my 10 national park trip shooting Comet Neowise. And then I'm going to be sharing how to take stunning night shots with only a camera and tripod. And then finally, we're going to end up with questions and answers, which I always look forward to. In my background, I grew up in rural Canada in Quebec, a small French town by the name of Châteauguay. And there, as a youth, basically starting at 11 years old, I had a paper out. As a matter of fact, I had 2 paper outs, a morning paper out where I got up at 5:30 and also a paper out of another newspaper after school. And of course, in the wintertime, while I was delivering papers in the morning and after school, it was dark. And so every day or 5 days a week while I was delivering papers, I would see the night sky, and I was just amazed. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it's basically, I guess you would say, a God-instilled love of the night sky. That somehow was just gifted to me. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and they had just had no interest. I had an older brother that always made fun of me, called me kind of a nut because I would go out and be up on the fire escape, the roof at all hours of the night, looking at the night sky, looking at the stars at night. But I did live in a pristine area, and it was just amazing to me that all that was available to be seen. Like most people are familiar with the sunrise and sunset, and of course moonrise and moonset. But I discovered there's so much more than that. There's so much more beauty. There's Venus rising, Venus setting, Jupiter rising, Jupiter setting, the constellation of Orion rising, Orion setting. It's just a continuous parade of events that happens nightly and worldwide. You see, the sunset takes place here in Long Beach, and then 5 minutes later, there's a completely different sunset, another city 10 miles away, and that's just continuously all around the world. Anyhow, so I was just considered myself privileged to see what I was seeing, and since my family and friends basically had no idea what I was looking at, I decided, well, I got to take some pictures of what I've been seeing, and so. Basically, with money from my paper route, I ended up going to a pawn shop and getting an old 35 millimeter camera and a tripod, and started showing my family and friends what I was looking at. And there's one poem that I want to share that's been meaningful to me, or meaningful in my life, and that is just one verse from William Wordsworth, where he wrote, "The child is the father of the man." And I just say that's meaningful to me, is that so many things that happened in my youth when I was from 11 to 16, but at which time I moved to America. But so many things during those formative years have affected my life, and you'll see that in the photos. Yeah. So I just love capturing the continuous parade of the planets and the stars in the sky. And as I mentioned, when I was 16, my dad moved to Long Beach, California, to work for McDonnell Douglas. And although my family was excited to come live near Long Beach and be near Disneyland, that was a big thing back then, I was sorely disappointed with the night sky here in Long Beach and LA area. But a year later, when I got a driver's license, I discovered our fabulous national parks. And it's been, frankly, an adventure ever since. And so let me just share with you some of my key images of the national parks before I get into some of the rest of the presentation, where I go into detail on how you can take pictures like this too. Okay. Joshua Tree National Park, of course, was the first place I headed to. It's a place known to go see comets and meteors. And so I've been there many, many times. Of course, in 1997, Comet Hale-Bopp came by, and that was certainly the place to go to for that comet. Nearby, we have, of course, Death Valley. You can see this is looking east, so of course you have the constellation of Orion rising, Orion's belt. This is Mars over here, and the glow on the horizon is actually Las Vegas. Here's a view of the Milky Way, obviously rising over Sprock Lake in Rocky Mountain National Park. Or Sequoia National Park. Here's the twin sisters with the Milky Way overhead. And of course, my favorite national park, I have a lot of favorites, but one of my favorites, certainly as far as so much beauty in a small area, if you can refer to Yosemite as small, but this was a winter scene I came across in December 2012. And just to describe the scene to you a little bit, I just drove from home. I went there for the Gemini meteor shower. It was raining all the way there, and window wipers going all the way. But as soon as I got through tunnel view, I'm parked here in a tunnel view parking lot. And as a matter of fact, the light that you could see, there's a light lighting up the snow and lighting up the tree on the left. That's light's actually coming from the tunnel itself. So you can kind of visualize where I'm at here. And of course, in the sky, we have Orion rising. We have Jupiter. We have the V shape of Taurus. And of course, Gemini twins here and the little wisp of the winter Milky Way. And in the scenery, we have Bridalveil Falls down here, a Half Dome, and then El Capitan there, of course. So you could just imagine yourself there, what a sight to behold, to see that. Here's an image of Old Faithful Geyser. I went on a trip with my family to Yellowstone, and actually the Grand Tetons. We did some rafting up there, and I broke away for 3 nights to basically shoot Old Faithful Geyser. So it was I wasn't successful the first night or second night because it was cloudy, and but the third night the clouds did break, and matter of fact, for those 3 nights, I would set my alarm because since Old Faithful is very faithful, it would go up every 90 minutes. And I was basically sleeping in my van in the parking lot there. And every 30 minutes before every 90 minutes, I set my alarm and run out there and see if it was clear. And anyhow, on the third night, I eventually caught Old Faithful going off with Jupiter above it and the Milky Way. But that was a real effort to capture that. But again, a fun experience. And of course, next to Yellowstone is the Grand Teton National Park. That's actually, I like the Grand Teton National Park even more than Yellowstone. It's a great deal of beauty there. Of course, here we got the Milky Way and the Big Dipper here on the right. And we got some green air glow here. And then a little wisp of northern lights here. That reddish glow there is actually some northern lights. Not as dramatic as I used to see up in Canada, but at least a little bit of glow there. Here we have Mount Rushmore, basically almost the same scene as here at the Tetons, with the Milky Way on the left and the Big Dipper on the right. And this is an amazing part. Devil's Tower. For those of you who saw the movie, I think it was 1976, kind of an old movie, but one of the first decent alien movies. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was the name of the movie. But Devil's Tower is a remarkable location. Looks like a sunset there on the left, lighting up the clouds, but that was actually a KOA campground. So sometimes light can be helpful. Here we have Zion National Park, the Watchman Mountain, and Zion is an amazingly dark location. Highly recommend it as a place to shoot the night sky. There's a small town close by named Springdale, but anyhow, the lights from the town are lighting up the mountain, and since they're man-made lights, they have a greenish, yellowish tinge. Normally, the rocks of Utah are reddish in color, but there's a tint on these. Here I am up in Great Basin National Park. Basically, if you drive to Vegas, drive another half hour and then hang out on the left. I forget the name of the road, but you drive another 4 hours. And so I drove there all in one day and then hiked up this 10,000 foot mountain, not all the way, but drove up a good way. But I hiked a couple thousand feet. And I was kind of beat when I got there, but this was my reward. Beautiful Milky Way rising over Stella Lake, gorgeous location. Here I am in Arizona at the National Petrified Forest, and this is the Painted Desert part of Petrified Forest. Can't see any trees there. Oh, and this is, I got so many favorite places, but this one takes the cake. This is a cave by the name of False Kiva in Canyonlands National Park. And I've been here at least 8 times. It's 750 miles from home. It's in East Utah in as I mentioned, in Canyonlands National Park, which is right next to Arches National Park. Both those parks are just amazing places, a lot of landscape scenery to shoot the night sky. What I like about this view is that over the centuries, I'm sure dozens of Indian tribes have populated this very, very same cave. And yet I was looking at this view, whether you see no buildings or anything, I'm looking at the same view that all of these tribes saw over the last 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. This view is basically the same, the Milky Way rising. And I considered it a privilege to be able to be at a place like this, that this hasn't changed in, let's say, 5,000 years or whatever. So I've been very fortunate. Okay, I'm jumping countries here. I'm going to show just two pictures from other countries. This is the Dolomites, Italy. It's a refugio or a place of rest up in the mountains in Italy, maybe about 4 hours from Venice. But the sky is the sky. Here's the Big Dipper here, and the Gemini twins here, and the Orion rising, and the V shape of the Taurus, the bulls, the horns, and of course the Pleiades. A little bit of the California nebula there. And then here's a shot from South America, Easter Island. Again, an amazing place, one of the most remote places in the world. And these are the, I won't say Gemini, but it's the Magellan galaxies, satellite galaxies here. These are amazing. Like this miniature galaxy is like the size of the full moon. And this one here is like the size of 5 full moons. So for someone from the Northern Hemisphere, it's really impressive to see the Milky Way and then the satellite galaxies right next to them. Okay, back to the United States here. Here's, we are at the Grand Canyon, north rim of the Grand Canyon. Here's the Angel's Window there on the north rim. And another one of my favorite places, Mauna Kea, Hawaii, on the Big Island, the top peak of the Big Island, 13,000 feet. You have my rental car here. Of course, the Arch of the Milky Way is stretching from the Northern Cross, the North American Nebula there, and all the way to the Southern Cross. And yes, for those of you who haven't seen it, the Southern Cross from Hawaii, you can definitely see the Southern Cross. It's 21 degrees latitude. You don't have to go to Australia to see the Southern Cross. As a matter of fact, here's the pointer stars that point to the Southern Cross. Here's the city of Hilo under here, and here on this glow here is caused from lava erupting and glowing under there. Another magical place on the coast of Maui is a city by the name of Hana. Many of you who've been to Maui may have heard of the road to Hana. It's a very windy, terrible road, but this is your reward once you get there. Just these used to be called what's called the 7 sacred pools. They've changed the name back to the Hawaiian name. Pools of Oahu. But anyhow, it's just a beautiful scene. Of course, in the sky, we got Sirius, Orion, Taurus, and the Pleiades. And then those pools end up flowing into the ocean. And this was not an easy shot. I was there. I was up on top of Haleakala, 10,000 foot mountain for 3 nights. And the third night, it finally cleared up. And I got some shots of the top of Haleakala. But then I came down to the coast and spent 2 nights here. It was only the third night where it's just started clearing at 2 o'clock in the morning. You could see all the storm clouds there departing. But this was like paradise. And you could just imagine yourself here, visualize yourself here, just looking at this amazing scene. So I've been very, very fortunate to see what I've seen. I should have showed this picture a couple of slides earlier, but this is the top of Haleakala with, of course, the Arch of the Milky Way over some rain clouds, which had been covering me for the last basically 3 nights. This was the third night where it finally cleared. Matter of fact, those rain clouds are still raining down there. But Haleakala is amazing, amazing place. It's like you're walking on Mars. Here's another view of it. This was published all over the place. And here's Haleakala at dawn. I'm on Maui. Across the ocean is Mauna Kea over here, 13,000 feet, and Mauna Loa. In the sky, we have Mercury, which of course is close to the sun. You know, it's going to rise. Sun's going to rise in about 90 minutes. And here we got Scorpio, and we got the pointer stars to the Southern Cross. And of course, the stars, of course, have color, which you could easily see in the Southern Cross. There's 3 blue stars and then the yellow star. Here down here is Eta Carina. Again, just a magical scene. And here's one of my trips. I actually hiked into the crater Here's one of the shots I took there, and frankly, it was like I was walking on the moon, the far side of the moon. It was just dark, 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 and just an amazing scene before me. And this, you would think it was a summer Milky Way with all the stars there. But this is a view of the winter Milky Way. Obviously, it's winter. Here's Orion and the Pleiades. And it shows you how dark that location is for the Milky Way, winter Milky Way, to appear as bright as the summer Milky Way. And how amazing, another amazing gift to me. Here I am hiking another one of my favorite parks, Bryce Canyon, hiking the Queen Garden Trail. Bryce Canyon is full of amazing hikes. You can hike 10 miles down there easily. And the other end of the, well, you could start a couple different places, but I started at hiking the Queen Garden Trail, and that leads into the Navajo Trail. And the Navajo Trail is one of my favorite areas. I'm going to point out a couple of things. Is the mask. You could think of a Venetian mask. And then down here is Thor's hammer. It doesn't look like much here, but I'm going to show you some pictures later of Comet Neowise. This was my one of my go-to places to photograph Comet Neowise. So as I mentioned, I've been very fortunate to hike the parks at night. I used to be able to say I own the parks may be really crowded in the daytime, but at night I kind of owned the park. I was the only one out there. That's not the case anymore, frankly. There's a lot of people like me that are out there shooting the night sky, which is great to see such interest in the night sky. But I've always enjoyed the solitude and the serenity of being out there alone at night. I'm going to share another poem or a psalm, and this is from King David of Israel, who was a shepherd for many years in his youth, and so he certainly knew the stars. Anyhow, this is what he writes in Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows his handiwork. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they declare knowledge. Like I was mentioning, the parade of the planets, there's this show going on. And then finally here, there's no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Okay, jumping into my recent trips. I have 4 trips I'm going to share with you. 3 of them are really brief. And this past December 2020, of course, we had a great showing of the Gemini meteor shower. And of course, my go-to place on short notice is Joshua Tree National Park. So I have several secret places there that I go to, but this is one of them. I'll just say it's near Barker Dam, but because many of the campgrounds get really crowded there during meteor shower time. But anyhow, this is here we are with a couple of meteors. This next shot is a bright Gemini, of course, with Orion and Taurus easily visible there. And then that night, this was December, so of course we had the conjunction here of Saturn and Jupiter. And this was just taken with a 24 millimeter lens. And normally for most people that shot this conjunction event, they got out the big zoom lens. But it's amazing what you could do with landscape. I'm sure many of you have, taken a camera and took a shot of the moon, and you get that developed, and you say the moon is just really, really tiny in the frame. And that's true when you shoot a picture of the moon with no context. In other words, just the sky. But you take a picture of the moon next to some landscape, it really magnifies the celestial event and makes it more interesting. So that's one of my tips, I guess. Another recent trip was I went up north to the Redwood coast, Northern California. And on the way there, I stopped by Mount Shasta and took this panoramic shot. And Mount Shasta is an amazing mountain. You can see it for miles and miles away. As you get closer, it gets prettier and prettier. But this is a magical night scene. I had to sprinkle, there's some sprinklers there you could see. I had to move. I was getting wet there for a while, but one of the hazards of the job. Here I am up in Northern California, near the Redwoods. This is the Redwood coast, and just a beautiful coastal scene of the summer Milky Way. And this is the Redwoods with, of course, the Big Dipper. And this is a panoramic shot. It's actually 3 images that are stitched together because the Redwoods, just like the squares, are real tall and you can't get them all in one shot. Okay, here's a picture of a red schoolhouse that I came across in the daytime, and they had 70 or 80 elk just sitting out in the schoolyard. And it was just an amazing scene in the daytime. And I decided to come back at night and shoot that schoolhouse. Of course, the elk were gone by then, but it was just still an amazing scene to behold and enjoy. The Milky Way very, very prominent. Then one of my trips about a year ago was the Grand Teton in Monument Valley. My first wife of 41 years passed away in 2013. But I was fortunate enough to remarry 5 years ago. And my wife's Chinese, and so she hadn't seen America or the national parks. So of course I had to take her on a national park tour, which we went on a trip to Yellowstone and Grand Tetons and 6 or 7 other parks. But anyhow, this is one, we didn't take a whole lot of night shots, but this is one that I did take near the Grand Tetons. And just this was just a museum where I'm in a museum parking lot where they have this sculpture here of some deer, and with a beautiful night sky behind it. And then coming back, we had to see. I always have to stop by Monument Valley. To me, that's just. That's the American Southwest is Monument Valley. Just a stunning view. And here, of course, this is a fall view or of the winter skies later on in the evening with Orion rising and Gemini twins, Auriga, of course, Taurus and the Pleiades. And this is a shot I took of Monument Valley probably 13 years ago. It's one of my favorite shots because Monument Valley is one of my iconic Southwest American locations. So I love going there. This is a picture of me and my wife in the daytime there. Just a great trip. Okay, here we are with Comet Neowise. As Keith mentioned, I was fortunate enough to go on a 10-day national park road trip. Basically, what inspired me for this trip was, of course, the previous comet, which was the comet of the century, Comet Hale-Bopp in 1997. I had shot that park and at the comet many different nights from Joshua Tree. And so after 23 years, with a comet Neowise coming by, I had to do something and do something big, so to speak. I plan to just go out and keep shooting the comet every day so to as many national parks as I possibly could. Of course, my first stop was at this time it was Joshua Tree National Park. Obviously, it's the closest park. And so I shot this. Before I shot it, I didn't have any telephoto lenses. I actually basically shoot all my national park shots. Pretty much all been taken with the 24 millimeter lens because I'm after the landscape, the wide angle landscape view. So I haven't needed any telephoto lenses. But for this comet, obviously, I wanted to have something bigger than a 24 millimeter. So on Craigslist, I ended up picking up an 85 millimeter, and then I ordered a 135 millimeter, but it didn't get here in time for me to take the trip. So I just went on the trip without the 135 millimeter. But anyhow, here's Comet Neowise over Queen Mountain and Joshua Tree National Park. And it was really great to see another bright comet with a comet that had, two tails. And but it was 108 degrees there. This was July. So it was hot. And if that wasn't hot enough for me, I kind of jumped from the fire into the frying pan with going to Death Valley. It was 117 degrees there. But this is the Harmony Borax mine area of Death Valley. It's a fabulous place to shoot the night sky because this 20 mule wagon is just sitting there. It's been sitting there for 100 years. And it's you could walk all around it. So no matter what's in the sky, you could walk around and take a picture of the wagon plus whatever's in the sky behind it. So it's a great landmark to shoot the night sky because you could, just like Old Faithful Geyser, there's a walkway all the way around Old Faithful Geyser. So you could just basically, like at Old Faithful, you could walk around the geyser till you see the Milky Way behind it or you see Jupiter behind it. It's an easy location. Not all locations are that way. Anyhow, after shooting Death Valley, I said, I got to get to cooler territory. So I headed to Bryce Canyon, which is like 4 or 5 hours past Las Vegas. And so this was the scene before me. As I was hiking out to this scene, I was hiking the Navajo Trail, one of the pictures I showed you earlier. And this was about maybe 3 o'clock. I was hiking out there. And there was one other lone night shooter that was walking back to his car. And I said, hey, don't you know there's a comet? He says, oh, really? He didn't know about it, but he just finished shooting the whole night. And so he I guess, didn't think the comet was bright or something, or he's just super tired, but he went into his car and he missed this. But what a sight to miss. This is it's just a beautiful scene. And I really like this scene. This is Thor's hammer here on the left. and what they call the Temple of Osiris. Those are hoodoos. Anyhow, I really like the composition of this scene with the comet. And then I did, of course, took a number of different shots. Here's more of a landscape scene. You can see the detail in the rock. There was all of these nights. There is a moon out. You know, it's not a full moon, but there is a bright moon. So that's why I'm picking up all that detail there. Okay, next trip was 10,000 foot Cedar Break National Park. Gorgeous park, is very, very similar to Bryce Canyon. They have a lot of hoodoos, but they're hard to hike down to. But anyhow, I got this shot, which is kind of cool with the contrast. And just next to Cedar Breaks is Brian Head Ski Resort. So they have, I was on the peak there at 11,000 feet. So the sky was just pristine. Great place to shoot the comet. Then coming back home, about an hour's drive north of Vegas is the Valley of Fire State Park. So I captured the comet here over the red rock of the Valley of Fire. Valley of Fire is very much like Utah. It's a small state park, but has a lot of red rock. It's a great place to shoot the night sky. So after those 6 nights, I waited. I came home. I waited, I think, 3 nights or 4 nights for the comet to go into the evening sky. And then I went on another trip. And here I am in the White Mountains next to basically east of Bishop, up Highway 395. And this is the comet under the Big Dipper. You can really see the colors of the stars, the Big Dipper. Most 6 of the 7 are blue stars. The comet was just gorgeous. Now, my main target that night in the White Mountains was to shoot the comet next to one of the ancient bristlecone pine trees. That's why I went up to the White Mountains, because of the ancient bristlecone trees, which were anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 years old. So I wanted to shoot the comet, which only comes by only every several thousand years, above one of these trees. The trick was to find a tree, and I was really fortunate because here it is. The evening. I drove up there, and a couple hours before sunset, or actually probably an hour before sunset, I had to find a tree to shoot the comet over. The trees are not easy to find because they're usually way up on cliffs somewhere. But fortunately, I found this. I saw this tree way up on the side of a very, very steep hill. But anyhow, I made my way up the hill, and this is kind of what the terrain looked like. It was just all of these rocks, and this was on a slant, like I'm not sure what the slope was, 30 degrees or something like that. But anyhow, real hard to set up the tripod. It wasn't the easiest setting, but also on adventures like that, I wear snake gaiters, so I don't have to worry about too much about anything giving me harm. Okay, the next night I went up from the White Mountains near Bishop. I drove up a few hours to Mammoth Mountain. And by the way, each of these nights I had to deal with clouds, or the days on, particularly the second trip. And even the first trip, most of the days there were clouds that well, that were just visible, like here shooting the comet in the evening. This was, the hot summer months, basically the summer monsoon seasons, where the days would be just covered with clouds, and then miraculously, the evenings, the clouds departed, and so I was very fortunate on many of these nights to get clear shots, and that was so for all 10 nights, which again I was very fortunate. This is a 24 millimeter lens, shooting the comet under the Big Dipper, obviously. And the view on the left here is the minarets. So you basically can't see them; they're out of frame there. But I'm shooting more north from where they are. I actually went up there. I wanted to shoot the comet over the famous minarets mountain range, but the comet was in a different direction. So sometimes you just have to deal with what you're dealt. Here's the same location, just a different lens, and this is the 135 millimeter lens, which really shows off the dust tail. Okay, the next night I went north up Highway 395 to magnificent Mono Lake. It's just a gorgeous, very, very photogenic lake, particularly at night. There's many of these, not hoodoos, but the tufa chemical compilations that have salt deposits, basically that have formed there that make some interesting foreground. There were actually a ton of other night sky folks shooting the comet from this location. I would say probably 15 to 20 at least. And they were using red lights, so that's why these white tufas are lit up. But again, this was a lucky shot, not only for the clouds to clear, which you can see the clouds there, but also a meteor appeared in this shot. Of course, I took many shots of the comet, but this one had a pretty nice meteor in there to boot. Now, my final destination was Lake Tahoe. I had shot this area before. This is Sand Harbor, which is a state park on the edge of on the northern shore. Just a gorgeous area. Again, it was totally cloudy. And then I forget what time, but later on in the evening, maybe 11 o'clock, the clouds just, there's a piece of the clouds departed, and I was able to get the shot, and then they were quickly covered up after that. So again, I feel very, very fortunate. My reward was getting an image in Time Magazine, the year in review. This Time the Year in Review comes out every December, and Time Magazine basically showcases what happened this year. Of course, this is the year of COVID and the California fires, a lot of not so positive events, but Time Magazine apparently wanted to have something positive in the magazine, and so they selected to have an image of a comet Neowise, since it was 23 years since the last great comet. So there's my Valley of Fire shot in the two-page spread in Time Magazine. As Keith mentioned, I've been fortunate to be published by Time in the past. In 1997, when the stunning comet Hale-Bopp came by, as people may remember, that comet was visible for an incredible 13 months to the naked eye. not telescopically, but to the naked eye for 13 months. Incredible. This comet over Hand Rock and Joshua Tree National Park. And then this is the comet over, again, Joshua Tree. I kind of went crazy when Comet Hale-Bopp came by. I spent from January 1997 through April, I spent 13 nights out in Joshua Tree, which is kind of a lot. I kind of went overboard. I remember, this is the film days. I remember going to the 1 hour photo place in Joshua Tree in February, by which time I had taken 800 pictures of the comet. And the manager of the 1 hour photo place said, "Hey, Wally, don't you think you have enough pictures of the comet already?" And I hadn't just started. If I quit then, I got 800 pictures. I guess that's enough. But anyhow, if I quit then, I would have missed the boat, so to speak. I would have missed this shot, and then I would have missed this shot, which ended up being Time Magazine Picture of the Year for that great event of Comet Hale-Bopp. And this was a cover of that year. And then, as Keith mentioned, in 2003, there was another world event, and that was the 50-year close encounter or close approach of Mars. And I kind of went crazy and took 10 trips, 6 trips specifically to the Valley of Fire, Nevada, because there's so much landscape there that's just great for night sky photography. And here's a Mars and Arch Rock. And you just take a picture of Mars with a camera. It's not, you're not going to see that much. But when you add landscape, interesting landscape, it makes the picture. And if that wasn't enough to give me a big head that year, Life magazine wanted a picture of the year for Comet Hale-Bopp because it was a big event. And they ended up choosing this image, which is Mars over Poodle Rock. Again, Poodle Rock is just amazing. Look, it looks like a dog laying down there, and it looks like a poodle. The eyeball here, and not only the dog nose, but the stub dog nose, and looks like the teeth there. It's just, there's no Photoshop in that rock at all. It's just natural. Just an amazing landscape. Here, the Valley of Fire, here's Poodle Rock again. That's like 3 stories high. It's really, really big. Still looks like a poodle far off. There's also Elephant Rock there in the Valley of Fire. That's a picture of Mars next to Elephant Rock. And then here's a picture of Mars and the full moon overexposed because I wanted Mars to show up. But anyhow, Valley of Fire is a great place. An hour's drive past Vegas. And you guys want some interesting scenery. Okay, if I could ask someone here how much time I have left. Reza, can you unmute and let me know?
Well, Wally, you have taken our breath away. I want to see more. So you do have some more minutes.
How many more?
Well, we are around at the mark of the hour, but if you can take like... would 5 minutes be good?
Yeah, 5 minutes be good. Okay. Sorry if I've gone on a little bit. Good. Okay. One of my goals today is to show everyone how to take these photos. So I'll try to quickly go through here, but really my technique is actually very simple. My equipment is very, very simple. The hard work is getting to these places, in the heat and the cold. Okay, my goal today is to point out a few techniques that will help anyone with a basic camera to take great shots of events in the night sky. So come with me and let me show you the beauty of the night sky and how you can capture it with surprisingly simple equipment. Basic equipment, fundamentally, any 35 millimeter camera. I happen to use the Canon 6D. I used that for many years. Even though it's an older camera, probably 10 years old. I now use the Nikon D750. Again, that's 8 years old, but it's perfect for the night sky. You don't need to go out and buy the latest and greatest equipment. As far as shooting, I started off with like my Comet shots of Hale-Bopp. I used a 50mm lens, but nowadays I mainly use a 24mm lens in my landscape. Tripod, ISO 1600. Basically simple stuff. Okay, the basic setting, manual focus, of course, not automatic focus. The lens wide open so you collect more stars. Exposure below 30 seconds. If you go longer, you're going to get star streaks. If you go shorter, you won't pick up as many stars. Though a lot of my exposures nowadays are 20 seconds. Cameras are so sensitive. Basic planning, like here's the constellations down by Corona del Mar. You'll plan what you want to shoot and go out and do it. Eclipse of the moon, this is the Corona del Mar, look close by. This is Catalina Island, this Hawaii. This is a moonbow that appeared when I was on Haleakala. My basic style, as you know, is capturing the whole scene, the sky and landmark. Mount Rushmore, taking a picture of the Dipper up in the sky is one thing, but taking a picture of the Dipper next to the Mount Rushmore, that it adds to the photo. You end up getting a doubly good composition, not only composition of the sky, but a good composition of the landscape. It's a combination that gives you a doubly good picture. Not just a picture of the Milky Way, but a picture of the Milky Way with an interesting scenery, like Manzanita Lake and Lassen. Okay, shooting constellations, basically the same thing. Whether you're shooting constellations or shooting a comet, is basically capturing something interesting in the sky over something interesting on land. The constellation of Orion from different locations. Here's the Big Dipper, Big and Little Dipper, again over interesting scenery. Big Dipper over Mono Lake. The Northern Cross in the sky and the cross in the landscape. Another picture of the Northern Cross. Shooting meteors, obviously go out when there's a meteor shower, increases your chances. I set my camera on auto mode, so it takes a picture every 30 seconds. End up shooting a couple thousand pictures a night. And yeah, I show you the lucky shots. I don't show you the unlucky shots. But if you take enough pictures, you get lucky. This is a monster meteor, probably magnitude -15, just incredibly bright. That was published in National Geographic. Okay, just real quickly, I'm going to end here in a couple minutes. How to take landscape panoramic shots. A lot of my shots are landscape panoramic shots. Basically, set the camera on tripod in vertical mode. In other words, turn it vertically. Take a photo at the far left of the scene, and then move the camera over 30% to overlap the next frame, and then shoot another scene. And then continually doing that to 5 or 6 scenes to capture the whole scene before you, and then process the images in panoramic stitching software, of which there's several, Photoshop or several others. This is what you end up getting. You're able to capture the whole scene and not just a part of what the eye could see. So panoramic stitching really helps, like I say, capture the whole scene and not just a part. Otherwise, you would just get like 1/5 of this view, and yet your eye has seen that whole view. beautiful Bridal Veil Falls in the wintertime. Amazing scene. Okay, that's all, folks. Thanks for spending a night under the stars with me.
Wally, absolutely amazing. I hope that people will visit your website and look at the pictures that you didn't get to show us tonight. I spoke enough during the introduction. I want to open it up for question and answer. I know that Matt might want to say something and Todd Mitchell might want to say something. But before I turn it over, I'd like to give a shout out. Marge, I saw you in the chat. Thank you. You have not missed a meeting. You have been great as far as supporting our online adventures. Jerry, I hope you're not too busy over there at the Oster Institute. And anytime you want to come back, I love your talks, Jerry. And I'm sure OCA would love to hear what you have to say also. And Christopher, I recognize your name from all of the emails that I've sent out as the publicity director. If we've met before and I've forgotten, I apologize, but I do recognize your name. And that's the shout out to all of the VCAS members. For all the OCA members, when this pandemic is over, I'm looking forward to meeting all of you up at the Moore Park College Observatory. And with that, Wally, thank you very much. I'll send out an email with your website address and a link to the recording of this meeting for those people who didn't see it. Matt, Reza, Todd, are you ready to open it up for questions?
I've got a few. Let's start it off. Well, first off, Wally, as a lover of national parks and a lover of astronomy, you just hit two of my favorite things right there. I think every 3-day weekend I try and get out to a national park, so I love it. And now I've got some I can add to my list. I need to find a bristlegone pine. So I don't do a lot of astrophotography. I've done a little bit with it, but I do a lot of visual. And one thing I find myself more and more concerned with is satellites. How often do satellites or other kind of sky pollution, how does that impact your work?
It impacts it some, but not enough at this point. Maybe with Starlink, with 50,000 more satellites up there, it might. But usually when I go out, I'm there all night, and I'm taking many photos. So yeah, there are many times where the planes coming by are an inconvenience. I have to wait for the plane to come by before taking the shot. And so, yeah, it is an inconvenience, but it doesn't cause me to pick up my ball and go home, So it's doable.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I tend to find it the same way, but Starlink does worry me a little bit too.
Yeah.
And then my second question, I know you mentioned you use some panoramic stitching software, but I know I've met other astrophotographers and they have, I think they do more post-processing than actual shooting. What would you say is the ratio of how much do you spend with the time actually getting the shot versus processing it later on the computer?
Okay. That's an easy answer for me because I'm terrible at processing. And so I actually have someone else do that for me who is good at that. So I've learned to stick with what I know best. And what I do best is getting out going to dark locations and shooting the night sky. And so I don't do any processing. I do some simple things like cropping stuff afterwards, but I don't do any processing, any of the stitching, for instance. So that does get expensive, and people could save money obviously by doing it themselves, but that's what I've chosen to do.
Hey, Wally, it's Todd. So you were saying that you've chosen a subject where more and more people want to go. They're national parks, and you were fortunate enough in so many of these cases to have the whole place to yourself.
Yes.
In those times where there's a crowd, does that kind of force you in another direction? Do you find that you have happy accidents?
Can you say that again? What did you mean by happy accidents?
Well, you might maybe a crowd would send you in a different area of the park, or maybe some people would discover something that you hadn't seen before. Are those good photo opportunities?
Not necessarily, because I basically shoot the key landmarks, like for instance, Old Faithful Geyser. So I'm shooting since I'm shooting the key landmarks, that's what everyone else wants to shoot also. I don't, because this is it's actually besides being fun, it is a business. For the last 20 years, this is how I make a living. I sell my photos as souvenir products in national park gift shops. That's my main business, and that is how I've made a living last 20 years after my accounting career. So the souvenirs that people want to buy in the gift shops are the key landmarks. So I'm not out in the mountains or deserts looking for interesting photo opportunities. I'm looking to capture key landmarks that people came from Japan to see, or people came from China to see, or people from Long Beach came to see in Yellowstone or Joshua Tree National Park. I'm after the key landmarks with plus interesting sky behind them. So unfortunately, with more and more night sky photographers out there, they're after the same thing, or at least a good portion of them are. So I have to go there at a different time, and they might tend to go there, like say, be active. Excuse me. They might be active in the early hours of the evening, let's say between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the evening in the summertime. So I just plan to be there at a different time, midnight to 2 o'clock or midnight to 3 o'clock, and I plan accordingly.
That's good.
Yeah. But it's great to see such interest in the night sky from photographers.
Reza, I noticed that we have some questions in the Q&A. Did you want to read them off?
Yes, sure. So let me go to Q&A, Wally. First of all, you did mention that you do not do the post-processing yourself, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of interest. People want to know, because the equipment you mentioned are quite a few, simple and easily accessible to everybody. So,
Yes.
but can you tell us how much post-processing is involved? What does a raw image look like when you take it?
Okay, well, basically, I try to do everything in camera. That's my goal, is to capture everything in camera. So everything that you see is in my photos is 100% real, obviously. Okay, the only the main processing that I ask people to do for me is, for instance, balancing the sky or balancing the landscape with the sky. Now, the sky is basically the same brightness. My exposure stays the same. I can super glue my camera and it'll work just fine. The settings, I can super glue the settings on my camera. So the sky brightness basically doesn't change, as long as there's no moon out or something like that. But what changes is the landscape, depending where I'm at. The landscape might be a little bit darker than the sky, it's generally darker than the sky. So the landscape needs to be brightened up. And so that's basically what I have my person do. as far as the scene goes, and then of course there's the photographic stitching. Okay, and I take two different types of panoramic shots. One is the obvious panoramic side by side, taking 6, 7, 8 shots, but also is the vertical panoramic shot where I take the shot straight on, gets a little bit of the sky and the landscape. Then I move the camera up, take another shot, move the camera up, take another shot. And that's like a vertical panel, so to speak. And well, like for instance, my Monument Valley shot, I would have just got, Orion and the Monument Valley landscape in that initial shot. I would have missed getting the Pleiades and the other higher constellations. Yeah.
So you do some stitching to make the panoramas, but a famous technique for the people who are doing astronomical objects is stacking. Do you do any stacking as well?
No, I don't. And I somewhat, I've seen people use stacking basically to their detriment, I feel, because I see people stacking images, staying close to home, staying in light polluted areas, and taking 10 shots and stacking them together and getting a better image. But they could have got a 10 times better image if they went to Joshua Tree, if they went out where it was dark, and forgetting about the stacking. So that's my take. I'm sure I'm stepping on some toes here because a lot of people do stacking. I think that's basically because a lot of people don't want to travel. That they want to shoot from their backyard, or they want to shoot locally, and don't want to go through the the trouble of travel, because it is. The hard part is the traveling, the heat and the summer, and it gets cold out there in the wintertime. And so a lot of people don't like that. But I, like I mentioned, what I learned as a child from when I was 11 to 15 years old, doing that paper route, I know this is Canada. Okay. So I'm doing my paper route every morning, getting up at 4:30, starting at 5. And whether it's 10 degrees outside or minus 10 degrees. And I figured out, I could do this and deliver the papers when it's minus 10. Why can I do that? Well, because the week before I did it when it was minus 30. And so I have that built into my system, so to speak, that I learned that sometimes you just need to endure it and do it. And so it's I don't mind doing it. I don't mind going through the trouble because I've learned that. I've been through the cold. And that's frankly one reason why I've been published so much, is because I'm willing to do things that many people are not willing to do.
Thank you. Well, you answered the next question, which was how you deal with the cold. You just have perseverance. And but now
well, I have a lot of I have 4 or 5 layers.
So yeah, next thing is people are asking about the tips. First of all, how do you? And you said you layer
people
your
can
clothing.
Pay me in tips, and people can pay me in tips and by sending me Bitcoin. I'm sorry, I just, that was a joke. What were you saying about tips?
So people want tips from you on how to deal with the cold, how to deal with the dangers. And you mentioned the snakes. What other dangers are there in hiking and staying late at night in national parks? If you can speak to all the experience you have, how to stay safe, how to stay all good throughout the night.
Well, I finally got a converted van about 10 years ago. And that has been a lifesaver for me, because it's, it has a heater, it has a stove, has a refrigerator, has a bed. And so prior to that, I was just sleeping in the back of my van, just bear van or the back seat of my car or in my rental car up on 10,000 foot Haleakala crater for 3 nights in a row. And, so yeah, I had to deal with it cold. And obviously I do try to be prepared. I do have think through what I need and have like multiple layers. I have like a silk layer underwear, then a more heavy underwear than pants, and then regular pants, and then down pants, and same thing, two or 3 layer jackets. So I'm prepared. And also, like for meteor showers, to tell you, sometimes I cheat. I go out there, set up my camera to automatic take 1,000 shots for the next 2 hours, and I go in the van and I sleep. I don't need to be there, push the button for 2,000 shots for meteor showers. But I have come across multiple animals. In my old age, I'm getting more and more terrified of bears. I've come across a lot of bears. They didn't used to bother me, but I've read too many bear stories, people getting eaten. So they affect me a little bit. So I try to be careful. I've been many times, I'll be hiking out there, and especially in the woods, you'll see 2 green eyes looking at me, or 4 green eyes. And then it ends up being just innocent deer, but it still scares me. But just be sensible, try to be sensible and think through what you're up against, and don't take too many crazy chances. I can give you story after story, but we don't have time. But another time, I have a lot of war stories.
Okay, thank you. And next person want to know, do you need to get permission to be out in the parks at night?
Okay, that's a very good question. For the most part, no. And most national parks are free to roam at night. I say most. The exceptions are basically the Indian ruin parks like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon's very, very strict. Matter of fact, to shoot Chaco Canyon in New Mexico at night, you need to get a photo permit. Normally, you don't need a photo permit. No photographer needs a photo permit to shoot in the national parks. That's because the great color photographer, the Ansel Adams of color, I call him, Galen Rowell, who, Ansel Adams shot everything in black and white, did a fantastic job, but Galen Rowell basically followed him in the color age and took fantastic color photographs of the national parks. And but he changed the national park rules. They used to have rules that you needed a permit to shoot in the national parks, but he got the rules to change so that any individual or a party of 5, as long as you're not like a Steven Spielberg with a cast of thousands going there, you don't need a permit. So for the most part, you don't need permits, except places like Chaco Canyon. Some places restrict you, they will ask you to move along, like Joshua Tree. They want you in a campground, but I've been shooting there for years and years. And when the ranger will stop me and say, well, you shouldn't be out here, I say, well, okay, I'll move. But I find hiding places. So for the most part, on the road, if you're on the road, just on the side of the road, they won't leave. They'll leave you alone for the most part.
Okay, there might be rangers listening here, might not be happy with that advice to general public, but and somebody wants to know, how do you get the rays on the brighter objects? Do you use some special filters, grating things, or is that just natural, the rays you get on those bright stars?
Okay, I should have mentioned it. We have one gimmick I used to use, I don't use anymore, is I put a standard star filter in front of my lens, And it's photographers like city landscape photographers have used those for the city lights, street lights would show a burst. And I've used it for taking pictures of the constellations because it helps the constellations stand out. Okay. And but I've shied away from using that the last few years. I've switched to a soft focus filter, which kind of does the same thing. It makes the stars a little bit fatter and you're able to see the colors. So because when you take a picture of in a really dark sky, you can't really see the Big Dipper or Orion because it is lost in all the other stars. So using a soft focus filter will emphasize some of the brighter stars, emphasize the constellations. So that's one gimmick I do use, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. And also one thing that's striking in some of your images is the color red shines so nice, especially somebody's mentioning in that Haleakala crater. So is that some photography technique that you used or is that post-processing?
No, post-processing. That's just the Haleakala crater. It's amazing, like you're walking on Mars, like I mentioned. Yeah, the terrain there is moonscape-like. That's all natural. That's, I don't know whether it's copper in the landscape there, but that is 100% natural. Yeah. The eye, I'm not sure if the eye sees that, but I think the color at night, the time exposure certainly brings out color. Like I certainly don't see any color at night when I'm shooting, but that's I think that Haleakala scene, there was some moonlight there, so that's lighting that up. Even though I couldn't see that color with the eye, the camera certainly in the 20-second exposure is capturing that color.
Thank you. And you mentioned for the most part, this is a lone adventure and you do enjoy that serenity of the night landscape. But you, before the meeting, we were talking and you mentioned that you do have a community of all these night landscape photographers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. In 2007, I was invited by Babak Tafreshi, who was the founder of TWAN, TWAN, which stands for The World at Night. And he was forming a club of landscape astrophotographers where he wanted this club, basically 30 members or so, that he wanted this club to each represent their own countries, photographing their country's landscapes, like our national parks here in the States. So it's been an amazing venture belonging to this club. It's probably, like I mentioned, there's 30 people from probably 12 to 14 countries. And we all shoot the night sky over our famous landmarks. And so it's been a great club to belong to. As I mentioned to someone, I enjoy the weekly sharing of photographs, like for instance, if there's a conjunction like of the Saturn and Jupiter that just happened here in December, I might show a picture that I took over from Joshua Tree, but someone else will show in the group will show a picture from France or someone else from Germany or someone else from Iran. So it's really great to see this montage of different images of the same event occurring around the world. So I've enjoyed being part of that group.
Thank you. And for those of us who are interested to get some of your pictures, besides going to the gift shops at the national parks, can you tell us where we can get your pictures? Are they available in both in a book? Have you published a book, or are they available in digital formats for us to download as well?
No, they're not available in digital format, but they are available from my website, which my son runs, and it's astropics.com, ASTROPICS.com. And I asked my son to put a special code in there. So if anyone chooses, you can go there just to look at the photos, of course. And by the way, just by looking, you could learn a lot about how to take pictures just by looking what other people, not only what I've done, but what other people have done. But if you choose to purchase, if you use the code STAR, S-T-A-R, the website is set up to give a 30% discount for the next week or so as a because of this OCA and Ventura event.
So let me actually put that in chat. So is that star in capital or lowercase, or it doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters. It's lowercase.
Okay. And star just alone. Okay.
I'll make sure all of that gets out in my next email when
Thank you.
I do a little bit of a review about, what everybody missed. And will this be available on YouTube? Were you okay with that, Wally?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. So I'll remind all of our members that they can watch you on YouTube after this. And if they want to get a discount rate of 30%, that'll be in the email as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Well,
So,
this has been great. I've really enjoyed it.
That's great. We have one more question. Well, let me see. There are some other questions if you have some time.
No, I definitely have time. Yeah.
And you did mention about some of the settings you have in your camera. You mostly use very high ISO, 1600. Doesn't that usually introduce a lot of noise? Doesn't that? So how do you resolve that, or is that not the case?
Well, 1600 actually is not that high, at least in my opinion. I mean, there's some people that really crank up the ISO crazy, and does introduce a lot of noise. But I found with the Canon 60 camera that I've used, there is some noise there, but it's not terribly bad. But I would mention that I did switch from the 60 Canon camera to the D750 Nikon camera a couple of years ago, because it does give me less noise than the 60 did. Okay, and then but that camera is still 7-8 years old now. The D750, so it's not the state of the art, but it still works, and amazingly well. So that's what I'm sick with. You can get them on.
You're not one of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, you're not one of those photographers with like multiple cameras at their hand. You just have that single camera. You maybe change lenses.
Well, like I said, I don't stand, other than for the Comet, I generally use only a 24 millimeter. That's all I need, because I'm out there hiking the park at night. I don't want to carry all these lenses. Okay, I do for meteor showers, though. I did pick up a second D750. I got it on Craigslist for, I think, $800. But that's for meteor showers, because obviously Murphy's Law is really at work when you're meteor showers. You're pointing your camera here and the meteor falls there. So I do have two cameras for shooting meteor showers. But there I'm stationary. I just have a camera set looking this way and the camera set that way, and I'm there with my van. I'm not hiking through the park during nights and meteor showers.
Okay, and can you tell us about the exposure? You said you do it less than 30 seconds, and mostly you're doing it about 20 seconds. Can you tell us more about different?
20 seconds is what I've settled with probably for the last 15 years. And before that, I was mainly using like a 50 millimeter lens, like shooting the Comet Hale-Bopp. That was with film. So I was shooting 30 seconds then, but now with digital cameras, I stick. That it's more than enough. You see my shots of the Milky Way. It picks it. 20 seconds picks it all up.
Okay, and somebody's particularly asking about the conjunction image. Was that a 20-second exposure as well?
Oh no, no. Yeah, that was, I forget exactly, probably 2 to 3 seconds.
Okay, way less than that. Okay, with this,
Yeah, it depends on the exposure time depends on the lens. My 20-second exposure, that's with my 24mm lens. Okay, like when I shot the Comet using the 135mm lens, I was shooting 3 seconds force, maybe 5 seconds at most for the Comet, because it's a longer lens. The sky moves quicker, and otherwise the Comet would have streaked. Yeah, so 5 seconds tops.
and we have a last question. You know, sometimes in the realm of people who do photography, there is some rivalry between Canon and Nikon. So you switched from Canon to Nikon. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I just switched on the camera that I heard that the Nikon, this particular Nikon, the D750, had less noise, less digital noise. And so that was the reason for my switch. And I'm sure, you know, in those two camps, it's like the two political camps. There's always people have their reasons for this or that. But that was my reason for switching. Was the Nikon, that model had less digital noise than the Canon. Well, like I say, any camera will do. You'll get pictures of it, of any constellation with any camera. May not get as pure of a well, any camera will work for the constellation. If someone just wants to go out there and take a picture of the Orion or the Big Dipper, any camera will do.
So, you know, tell me if you agree with me. One point that I gather from this is that, you know, you have simple equipment, you have simple requirements. It's just a love of the night sky to get out, put this effort to go into the cold or the warmth, as you mentioned in Death Valley, and take some shots, and don't be disappointed if the first few ones, or maybe first 1,000 ones, come not good. Keep doing it and you'll get some good way at it. Am I right, or do you have something to add to that?
Yes, yes, and frankly, it's a lot easier nowadays with digital cameras. I mean, I'd go out to Joshua Tree taking pictures of the Comet, take 6 rolls of 36 exposures and come back, and this shot would turn out, and all of these would not turn out, and I have no idea why. And then, you know, then I learned, well, I need to take notes. But now with a digital camera, you take one shot, even if you don't know any setting at all, you could take a picture, let's say 1/1000th of a second. You look at it, well, it's too dark, and so you change it to 1/100th of a second. Well, that's still too dark. And soon after 20 shots, you get up, you try it at 20 seconds. Hey, that's perfect. So in one night of 1 hour, a person has no experience at all with a digital camera can try this, and find something that very night be successful. So it's really a totally different world nowadays than it used to be. So thankfully for all these people that want to start out now, it's a lot easier nowadays. So that you could do it, or anyone could do it.
Thank you very much, Wally. That was just a joy to watch. Not only I had a lot of great pleasure watching all those images and you talking, but I learned a lot. Thank you very much. So there's a lot of praise coming off your way in the chat as well. I don't know if you can see that. And again, thank you very much. So I've covered all the questions. Let me see, Keith, do you have any final remarks?
Well, actually, yes, I do. Reza, the open spiral bar, when is that coming up?
We have the open spiral bar the Saturday after the second Friday of the month. So we had the past months just a week ago, and we have the other one coming.
It's a fun time. I've been, and I'll send out the link. And then, of course, your next speaker meeting for OCA will be, I think, the Friday before ours on Friday, March 12th.
That's correct.
Do you know who your speaker is yet?
Yes, we're going to have a great speaker. I don't have the name in mind right now, but the speaker is from JPL, and all the information is available on the OCA website calendar. If people want to interested to attend the other events, they are more than welcome. That will be ocastronomers.org. And if you look at the calendar, you'll see our next general meeting and the open spiral bar, which is for everybody to come and chat. And then the beginners class is also there, the first Friday of the month. And we have VCAS meetings listed there as well. So there's a lot of things for people who are interested to attend different meetings.
You sent all of that out, all concisely listed on an email. I'll make sure that that's forwarded to all our members. Our next speaker meeting will be exactly a month away on March 19th. We don't have a speaker yet because of COVID. I just don't think that far ahead. I'd like to get somebody from JPL to talk about perseverance, but if anybody wants to volunteer to talk, the night's open. I'll have something good for everybody. And that's all I wanted to say. Give a plug for your club events and our club events too. Matt Gusty, thank you for joining us. Todd Mitchell, thank you. Reza, again, thank you for hosting us. And once again, give a hand to Wally Paholka. Raise your hands, everybody. Wonderful job,
Thank
Wally.
you, everyone. Thank you.
And Reza, I think with that, we're done.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Before I end the meeting, let me mention that when the meeting ends, there would be a questionnaire open in your browsers. Please be kind enough to help us make these meetings better by filling it out with a few minutes of your time. And I wish everybody great times ahead and see you all next month.